to Witchin' and Winin'. I'm your resident witch, Miranda.
And I'm your resident wino, Crystal.
The veil is thin, the candles are lit, and you know what that means? It's spooky season, y'all.
My favorite time of year.
Me too.
When the ghosts are chatty, the stories get darker, and my wine glass magically refills.
Okay, that's not magic. That's just you being committed.
Dedication is a craft of its own. Thank you very much.
Well, tonight we are raising our glasses and our energy to explore both sides of witchcraft, the light and the dark.
That's right. Some say witchcraft can heal, protect, and empower. Others tell stories of spells gone wrong or magic twisted for darker things.
So we thought, why not tell both, right? Tonight we've gathered true stories from real people, each claiming to have touched the power of witchcraft for better or worse.
The first half of this Halloween special takes us deep into the shadow side, curses, hauntings, and witchcraft used for harm.
Then we'll climb back into the light, stories of healing, protection, and transformation.
So grab your drink, light your candles, and join us as we dive into
Witchcraft, the light
and the dark.
So let's begin in the dark.
Before we begin,
we want to let everyone know that the stories that come from the dark side of witchcraft are all from the Reddit page, Ghoststories. It's a great page, and I recommend that you check it out.
Each one was written and shared by people who say these events really happened to them. So, as always, listen with an open mind and maybe a little light nearby.
Our first story comes from user AmanitaGuy. He calls it Witchcraft Gone Wrong, a cautionary tale of curiosity, spirit work, and what can happen when you open doors that aren't meant to be opened. As a practitioner of witchcraft, I have experienced plenty of paranormal activity. Not all scary, but some of them have been, though this one is one of the ones that creeps me out the most. It was a late night, and it was around the time of Samhain. I have always been fascinated with spirits and ghosts, so I wanted to reach out to one. I placed 3 candles in front of me and sat in silence for some time, waiting until I was in touch with all of my senses. I closed my eyes, holding an amethyst to my chest, and chanted, "Mother, most wondrous..." I don't know if I should say this chant in case it's like something, you know what I mean?
I was wondering the same thing when I was reading through this.
So I'm not going to actually chant it, but he held an amethyst to his chest and he chanted a chant.
So basically he was asking to be able to view the dead and open the gates to some place.
Yeah. All right, now I'm continuing in his voice. I then felt my heart sink. I started sweating. There was a sense of heaviness. I asked if I was alone and to give me a sign if I wasn't. The flame of one of my candles went out. I thought it might just have been convenient timing, so I asked again, and another flame went out. I lit the extinguished candles again and proceeded with the spell. I decided to try psychography. Guys, I'm sorry I'm saying it wrong, but pretty much
really
that's...
thing?
Well, okay, that's when you get you kind of draw little circles or I don't know, draw something just repetitive on a piece of paper. No.
Oh.
You draw something repetitive on a paper hoping that you'll get some sort of guidance to spell something or draw something or whatever on the paper.
Is that wait. Automatic writing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think I know what you're talking about now. It's like when a medium makes a connection with a spirit and the spirit writes through them using scribbles or symbols and such.
Exactly. All right. Continuing in his voice. At first, I didn't really get much. It was all just unreadable scribbles. So I decided to get things started by asking its name. A, N, and N. The last letter I couldn't quite make out at the time, though it was either an A or an E. But later I learned it was an A. Great, I thought. At least I got a name. But I got this horrible feeling in my gut. something felt off about this Anna. I put the pen back down on the paper. At first, it was just more unreadable scribbles, but the word hide appeared. Loud banging started from the door behind me. It calmed down after about a minute or two, so I decided to open the door. Nothing, just darkness and silence. I turned around, and as I did, loud banging came from the wall I was looking at, and all 3 candle flames went out. At this point, I was freaked out, so I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight so I can find the light switch. I turned it on, and the banging stopped. I said goodbye, thanked my goddess, grabbed my stuff, and that was it. Or so I thought. Half a moon had passed, and for those of you who don't know, that's about 2 weeks. I started. Oh my god! You're reading it in which top? I know, dude. Okay, still half a moon, half a month. Still about 2 weeks. Yeah. Anyway, and I started to get recurring dreams of the forest behind my house. And the first dream, I entered an abandoned barn house. I heard laughter, turned around, and saw the silhouette of a girl. Then I woke up. Each of the dreams ended in similar ways. In one of them, I went into the forest and went up a hill to find a bench with a note on it. I opened it to see the name Anna written multiple times. Nothing happened again until I went to boarding school. But this post is already long, so I'll stop here. Good news is, I haven't seen Anna since I left out boarding school. Okay, one thing I want to just insert here. Even though we're going to be talking about people's real stories, here's my disclaimer that I'm talking to whatever energies that might be listening. Nothing is absolutely allowed in my house. Like, get the F out. There's a shield. Go away. We're just reading other people's stories. This is not me talking about you is not inviting you anywhere near my family. So goodbye. Okay. Well, anyway, I got the chills. I'm not going to lie. So I don't know which part gives me worse chills, like the banging or the dreams that came after, mostly because I am a huge dreamer, I guess. My dreams are sometimes more than just dreams, and I know some people might think that's a little hokey pokey or whatever, but if you listen back to one of our early episodes, I explained something about my grandma and dreaming and la da da. But yeah, so that definitely gave me chills.
Yeah, dreams come true. I've had dreams that I had for years that have come true. Mm-hmm. And with people and places I've never seen or heard of before. But have we done an episode on that?
About dreams?
Yeah.
I feel like we have.
I don't know. I'll have to look back on that because that would be a good one. But as far as the banging or the dreams coming true, I think both are giving me chill factors. It's a good reminder that when you ask to see beyond the veil, you better be ready for what lurks back.
And don't ignore a spirit that says hide, honestly. But also, who would do that? Okay, let me just open this door to talk to whatever spirit decides to say hello who's walking by. What?
That just told you to hide.
I mean, for one, you shouldn't even be attempting to talk to a random ass spirit. Maybe if you wanted to attempt, have someone in mind, and then maybe talk to your guides and talk to pretty much just set yourself up for protection and set boundaries for whatever this is.
Do a salt circle around you. I don't know.
Yeah. And then, like I said, set the intentions. Yeah. But if you do anything like that, you gotta, before you open anything, you have to set a protection and then set, the boundaries for this whatever. So it's I'm only going to allow, my true and real or, spirits or whoever that mean no harm, la da 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 da. You don't just be
it means everything.
Dude, yeah. You don't just... Anyway.
But when the candles start going out, I start going out.
I mean, honest. Yeah. I always think about horror movies where, the stereotype for white people is, they're not afraid of anything and they're always, looking around or what's that noise?
Dumb?
Yeah. It's if anything I would not be, I'd be okay, bye-bye. There would be no horror movie about the situation because I am not going down into that cellar because I heard banging. I'm locking and bolting the door, piling things up, and I'm getting out of there.
I'm the dumb one. Well, I'm a very curious one. Do you remember, was it with y'all that we played Dungeons and Dragons?
Mm-hmm.
And my character was super curious?
Uh-huh.
Yes, and you had to keep rewriting stuff because I would open every box. Mm-hmm. I would go down every hall.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to know what that's me in real life too. I'm very curious, and if I hear a sound upstairs, I'm gonna go upstairs and be hey, who's here? So it's probably not a good thing with intruders and stuff, but
mm-hmm. I mean, if you're going to do that, at least have a weapon, which,
I got a gun.
Or two.
It's Tiffany blue with a diamond sight.
I remember that.
But
yeah,
is my Mother's Day present.
That's pretty cool. Well, anyway, back to our stories. Up next, we have a tale from the Appalachian Hills about an old witch, a stubborn farmer, and a warning that comes true.
Grab your crystals and a little salt, y'all, because this next one's got a bite.
Our next story takes us deep into the mountains of West Virginia, where old legends, family tales, and witchcraft all seem to grow out of the same soil.
This one comes from Subreddit user. They route there too, and it's called Old Aunt Kate, the Mountain Witch. It's got everything. Curses, strange footsteps in the night, and one family who learned real quick not to make a witch angry.
You know what they say, Crystal? Never cross a woman with a porch, a rocking chair, and a grudge. Probably a witch.
Especially in the South.
Yeah.
Let's dive in. This story was told by my mamaw many times when I was growing up. To lay a bit of a foundation, my mamaw grew up in a little spot on the map in rural Mingo County, West Virginia, named Nolan. The family was dirt poor, and Mamaw and her brothers and sisters often went hungry. The family's only close neighbor was an old lady that everyone referred to as Aunt Kate. The old woman lived alone and had what I assume was cataracts because Mamaw said her eyes were white. Aunt Kate's husband was serving time in the state penitentiary at Moundsville for murder. Anyway, due to their near constant need for food, Mamaw's dad planted a vegetable garden. The plot of land that they used was a good piece from the old home place where they lived. My Mamaw said this one particular summer was very hot and that copperhead snakes were abnormally active. Because my Mamaw loved her daddy, she reported that she would follow him everywhere. On this particular day, my great-grandfather and my mamaw pushed a large wooden cart to the garden and collected some of the vegetables that were ready to eat. My mamaw said that due to the heat and the difficulty of pushing the large wooden cart to and from the garden spot, that the two of them were wore out. As they neared the home place, they had to go by Aunt Kate's home. And as luck would have it, the old woman was sitting out on her porch as they wheeled the cart by. As the two nearly pushed the cart by without incident, they heard the old woman holler out, "Harrison, give me some of those beans!" Due to the difficulty that it took to raise, pick, and transport the vegetables, my great-grandfather replied, "We worked hard for those beans, and I am not going to give them away." The old woman giggled and replied, "Well, you will wish you did," thinking nothing of the old woman's threat. My mamaw and her daddy continued on their journey and carried on the evening without thinking about what the old woman said. That night, everyone went to bed. My mamaw had 6 or 7 siblings and shared a bed. Oftentimes, the older siblings would force the younger onto the floor to sleep. So this particular night, as most, my mamaw was on the floor to sleep. My mamaw said that she began to fall asleep and she heard it. Something coming toward her room from the hallway. Now, my mamaw knew the sounds her mother and father made as they moved within the old slatboard house. Because of this, she immediately used what cover she had to pull over her head. According to her, whatever was walking continued through the hallway and into her room and would stop where her head was laying on the floor covered up. It would then turn after a few seconds and continue back into the hallway where it would disappear, only to return back down the hallway to where she lay. Mamaw said that this happened all night long. She told me that she lay there paralyzed with fear until sunrise. As the sun rose, whatever was walking disappeared, and she heard her daddy moving around. She stated she immediately jumped up and ran to where her father was. Mamaw said that as she entered where Daddy was at, he was putting on his shoes. When he saw her, the two locked eyes, and she immediately knew where the thing was going when it left her room. When her daddy had finished putting on his shoes, he immediately went and put a bunch of green beans in a poke and headed out the door toward old Aunt Kate's house, Mamaw following after him. As they approached the old woman's house, they noticed that she was sitting out on her porch as if waiting on something or someone. Mamaw said that her daddy tossed the beans up onto the porch and proclaimed, "Old woman, take your booger back." The old woman smiled and said, "Don't worry, Harrison, it won't bother you again." I was raised by my Mamaw and watched her life as an example. She was a devout Christian and lived it. I never saw her drink, curse, or do anything that she thought was a sin. She always claimed that the story of old Aunt Kate was the truth, and I believe her.
Dude, I would believe her too.
You know, I swear stories like that just feel older than paper, like they've been told on porches for 100 years before Reddit ever existed.
And that one's got Mountain Witch, obviously, written all over it, and I just had the picture in my brain, you know, with her sitting there, eyes wide as milk, just waiting for that man to walk by again with her beans that she asked for.
All right. I'm handing this next one over to Miranda because if there's ever been a story that screams witch energy, it's this one.
Okay, yes, I've got this one. Our next tale comes from Reddit user AcesBlue99, and it's called The Battle of the Witches. It's a southern story about love gone wrong, a curse that bites back, and two root workers locked in a duel to prove who's the stronger witch. I feel like I've read this book before.
It's like the Hatfields and the McCoys witch version.
Yeah, honestly. All right. My grandma grew up in the South in a small country town, Taylorsville, North Carolina, where there wasn't really health care at the time and where root working, basically another word for hoodoo, but slightly different from voodoo, was very real and rampant, and it could go both ways, as in white magic and black magic. And Native Americans and African Americans were mixed in together. My grandma was mixed Native American Cherokee and black. Anyways, when my grandma was in high school, she had a very close friend. Well, one day, her friend meets this guy that she really likes, and he likes her, so they enter into a relationship. Well, as time goes by, the guy is treating my grandma's friend like crap, disrespecting her, would hit her sometimes, come home drunk, etc. My grandma would always suggest to her that he is no good and should leave him. And her friend would agree and say she's going to leave, but she never would and just stayed and cooked for him, cleaned, and dealt with it. My grandma couldn't understand because her friend wasn't the type to stick around. So one day, my grandma asked her, "Why the hell are you putting up with that? You said you were gonna leave, but you haven't. That's not like you." And the friend finally says, "I do want to leave, but it's like I can't. Every time I want to, something is compelling me to stay." So my grandma tells her she thinks she knows what's going on. She tells her she's going to take her to someone. The next day, while he's away, they walk deep into the woods, over cow pastures, crossing creeks, to this shack in the woods. The shack has circles drawn on the ground, bones hanging in the trees, and other things. The lady tells them to come inside. The old lady tells them to sit down, and my grandma explains what's going on. The old woman looks at her friend, and right away she says, "You have a root on you," which means a curse. She tells her she can break the curse, and not only that, she knows who put the curse on her. She tells her when she goes home to bring some hair off of his back. She tells the woman, "He's bald, so I doubt I can get any hair clippings." So the woman tells her to bring a piece of clothing that he recently wore. So she cuts a piece of his shirt and brings it back the next day with my grandma. The lady does something, says some words, and hands her this salt shaker thing and tells her when she gets home to sprinkle the stuff in the salt shaker on his side of the bed, his pillow from head to toe. Well, she goes home and does just that. That night, she notices that he's tossing and turning, and he kept raising up and wiping himself off because he was sweating profusely. She noticed that the spell must be working because she didn't care what he was going through in the night. So she fell asleep instead of checking on him. The next morning, she hears him getting up, and the entire side of his bed is soaking wet. She gasped when she looked at him. He grew an afro from a bald head overnight. She didn't care though. She told him she was done and started packing her things, and she left. She goes and tells my grandma what happened, and she stayed with my grandma until she can get away in town, which doesn't happen but twice a week, so she can get to her family. Well, the day before it was time, she started telling my grandma that she now misses him and wants to go back, which caught my grandma off guard. She thought the spell was broken, but something must be wrong. So my grandma goes back to that old lady to tell her what's going on. The old woman tells her that obviously her friend's boyfriend knows a root worker as well, and that there's only one other option to stop it and end the other root worker spell on her permanently. She used something a lot stronger, and she used it to prove that she's stronger. So basically, both root workers know about each other due to this. The old lady tells my grandma to go to the woods, find a twig of an oak tree, and bring it to her. So my grandma does, brings it back, and the lady does something to it. Then she asks my grandma where her friend is and if she's back at the man's house. She said yes. Then she tells her to take the stick to her friend's house, and while she's there, throw the stick at his feet. So my grandma makes the long walk to this guy's house, and sure enough, her friend is already there, and it seems like the spell that's on her is 3 times worse, because she was following him everywhere he went. Even if he stepped outside to pee, she followed. Well, as soon as my grandma sees him, she whistles to get his attention, and as soon as he looked in her direction, she tossed the stick at him. When the stick fell, it landed and stood vertical, and as soon as it did, he grabbed his throat and started choking and gagging. The friend, of course, started freaking out, and as soon as he dropped to his knees, he threw up a baby snake, which recoiled around the twig on the ground. As soon as it did, my grandma stepped on it and killed the snake. The man passed out, and this time, the curse was broken for good. It wasn't just about breaking a spell. It was also which root worker or which was the strongest. This happened often for many reasons because people practiced that craft in those days. Anyways, her friend left, and the man became, like most did in these days, a drunk. And again, this is a true story.
Now, that's one way to end a curse.
Right. I mean, nothing like a man coughing up a baby snake to fix a relationship, I guess, or to break it in this case.
Honestly, if a man ever threw up a snake in my house, I'd just hand him the keys and say, it's yours now.
Yeah. I mean, you and me both. I would be like, okay, this might be a little cursey curse. It's your, I'd be halfway to another county before, he even stood up.
Dude, that's not an X. That's an exorcism.
Oh my God. So, all right. So after that chaos, we're heading south. I mean, further south to Mexico this time, where another family found out what happens when a witch comes calling.
This one's part haunting, part warning. Here's My Sister and the Witch.
Now, the story takes us far from the hills of the Carolinas, all the way to Mexico, where witches aren't just the stuff of folklore. There's something families still whisper about in fear.
This one was shared by Reddit user ACMom1228, and it's called My Sister and the Witch. It's a chilling reminder that not all witches cast their magic for good. The following story happened to my mom in the 70s, 1 month after my oldest sister was born. My mom and her then husband, which passed away 3 months before this happened, were sleeping in bed and had my sister in between them sleeping as well. I know, not safe at all, but this was the 70s and they lived in Mexico. Anyway, it was the middle of the night and all 3 were knocked out until my mom's husband starts to hear my sister crying. So he starts calling out for my mom to check on the baby. The first thing she does is feel for the baby in the middle. She didn't feel anything. They start to panic because they can hear the baby crying, but they can't find her. My mom gets out of bed and realizes that the crying is coming from under the bed. She looks under and sees that my sister is there, only wearing a diaper. They couldn't believe what they were seeing because my mom had swaddled my sister, and she was sleeping between them. There was no way the baby could have crawled out of bed either. She was a month old. I'm going to put my 2 cents in here real quick. A month old, that baby's also not rolling over yet.
No.
So there's no way that baby just rolled off that bed with the parents on the sides. Anyways, okay. The next day, they ran into a neighbor who told them to be careful with their baby because he had seen a witch on top of their house the night before. Yep, a witch. According to my mom, These witches were known to seek out newborns and basically suck the life out of them by sucking it out through the soft spots on their head. The witches would apparently put the mom in a very deep sleep so that they couldn't hear the baby cry. That's why her husband was the one who heard the crying first and had to wake my mom up. So that same day, after the neighbor told them to be careful, my mom found a woman in town who was an expert in supernatural things and learned what she needed to do to keep the witch away from my sister. She had to make crowns from a bush that had a lot of thorns and put them around the house. She also had to put a bowl of salt under the bed and keep white roses either on the nightstand or under the bed. I can't remember which. My mom did as she was told, and nothing like that ever happened again. The witch was never seen around their house again. I know it's hard to believe in witches, but I believe my mom, and every time she tells this story, it never changes. Oh, and my sister was not hurt. Cold, but otherwise okay. My family has had other experiences with these witches, and my grandpa would always say that if they ever encountered a witch, all they had to do was yell and cuss the witch out, and it would leave them alone. He knew this because of an encounter he had when he was younger. I could write another post about this if anyone is interested. And then I had gone through the comments and I found a second story that they had put into the comment. So here's the second part of the story that you found in the comments of this post. So the second part of my witch stories has to do with my grandparents. The first story I'll tell will be about my grandpa. The second is about my grandparents. It's going to be long, so I hope you stay till the end. My family is from a very small town in central Mexico, about 1.5 hours from Mexico City. It's on a hill that faces a huge mountain and a huge valley all around it. Back when my grandparents were young, there was hardly any lighting outside and the streets were not paved. Very rural. I don't remember how old my grandpa was, but at the time he was a shepherd and had to wake up super early in the mornings while it was still dark to walk and work. One day at dawn, as he's walking in the field, he felt or heard something fly over him. He looked up and saw that the thing that flew over him landed on a nearby tree. He knew right away that it was a witch because of how she looked and acted. He describes her as very ugly, with jet black hair that was all tangled and dirty and had a bright red flashing light in her chest. She was holding onto the branches and was just watching him, and he was watching her. He worked up the nerve to start walking toward her and started shouting and cussing at her to leave him alone. The closer he got, the more he shouted and cussed. Finally, the witch got pissed off, growled, and launched herself off the tree and flew off. He said, "Screw this," and walked back home. The second part of this post is after one of my aunts was born. It's very similar to my first witch post about my sister. So my grandparents are in their room sleeping. Back then, I guess it was normal for couples to sleep in separate beds in the same room. And that's how they were, with my baby aunt sleeping in the room directly connected to my grandparents' room. It was in the middle of the night when my grandpa was woken up by a very loud thud that came from above him, and then right away my aunt started crying. My grandpa started to call out to my grandma to go and check on the baby, but grandma wasn't waking up. He finally started screaming for her to wake up and ran to her bed, and she finally got up and immediately ran to my aunt. She found my aunt naked and inside of a drawer in one of her dressers. My grandpa was in the other room screaming and cussing when they heard footsteps running above them, and then nothing. It had left. My aunt stopped crying after a while and was unhurt. Remember, the aunt is the baby that was found in the drawer. Okay. I don't know if my grandma did anything like my mom did to scare and keep the witch away, but I'm guessing she did because my aunt is very much alive and healthy. The reason my grandpa wasn't the one who ran into the room to get my aunt was because he's always been a scaredy cat. If he ever heard anything weird, he'd send my grandma to go check it out. That's why when he heard the witch land on the roof, he knew it was a witch and didn't want to go in himself, and instead stayed in his room cussing at her.
I've doubt. I feel like it's just because he wasn't scared at the time, but back then, and still a lot now, it's the women who take care of the babies. So it's like, hey, honey, wake up. Even though I hear the baby crying and I can do something about it, wake up.
Right. And especially back then,
yeah,
he might not have even had the first clue of how to comfort that baby, if he didn't have much experience comforting her to begin with. Anyway,
yeah.
Nowadays, he doesn't like to talk about this paranormal experience and even says they never happened, but they did. And a lot of scary things have happened to him. My mom and I think it's because he's cursed. He never had a drug or alcohol addiction, but he had a woman addiction. And we believe he did one or maybe many wrongs, and it came back to haunt him. So if y'all are interested in more of this Reddit user's stories, so go to the Reddit page, Ghoststories. Look for the user ACMOM, so ACMOM 1228. And then her or their other stories are titled Scary Stuff in Mexico and More Scary Stuff in Mexico.
So that story did give me chills because, whenever it has something to do with the babies or your kid, no, poor family. Imagine finding your baby under the bed or in a drawer.
I'd be breaking leases and lighting sage faster than a cat on a hot tin roof.
Yeah, same. You definitely see me running so fast I'd leave my shadow behind.
Stuff like this makes you realize how deep the fear of witches used to run, and in some places still does. Are there different types of witches all over the world in these different cultures and different areas?
Yeah. Yeah. Not all magic is, used to heal, unfortunately, and some of it's born out of hurt and power and darkness and blah, 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 yuckiness.
Well, let's shift from witchcraft used for harm to witchcraft used for healing.
Yeah, the other side of the broom, if you will.
So far tonight, we've wandered through the darker side of witchcraft. Curses, hauntings, and spirits that didn't like to be called upon.
But witchcraft isn't just about fear or power. At its heart, it's also about intention, healing, protection, and balance.
And maybe a little bit of sass and salt.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next stories show that magic can lift people up just as easily as it can knock them down.
From self-forgiveness to helping trees bloom again, these next ones remind us that sometimes the light wins.
Our first story of the good kind of witchcraft comes from Reddit user New Economist 4301. It's simple, raw, and real. A moment of self-compassion that became a spell without even meaning to. This is what made me believe. And this is posted in the Reddit, obviously in r/witchcraft. This is going to sound weird. It was a day where everything was going wrong. Tons of work stress because of logistics. Different county could only print at Kinko's. Client was exacting and needed multiple meetings that day with difficult staff. 1,400 pages of documents that would be given to me that day that I would have to analyze and fit into my general document and then print and show client and get approval and send in by 4 p.m. The night before all this, I worked late. I didn't have the docs I needed yet and wouldn't get them till tomorrow. And had a dinner with friends I couldn't cancel on with social repercussions, and I got a speeding ticket on the way home. I was so mad and sad. I called myself every name in the book. Normally when this happened, it would trigger a 2-week self-hatred spiral. All my life it was like this. I came home in tears and so mad. I took an index card and madly scribbled all my self-loathing thoughts. I'm so stupid. I got a traffic ticket and they'll take my license and I can't do my job and the stupid documents and the clients and my stupid boss and the stupid career and I'm the worst and I can't even do anything right, etc. And then I stopped and let out a huge breath. I sat there for a bit and then felt called to turn the card over and I began writing genuine reassurances. I have the money to pay for my ticket. It likely won't affect the validity of my license. I am good at what I do and the document is ready. It's okay. I'm not a bad person. Then I burned the card and went to sleep, fully thinking I'd wake up the next morning still hating myself. But I woke up relaxed and rested and not hating myself at all. I was in a state of acceptance and self-compassion. I got up and went about my day and everything went off without a hitch. The client was pleased with everything, and I had not a single issue. That night, I thought, hey, there might be something to this after all. I didn't know this was witchcraft, but when I thought about it, I was like, yeah, I guess I was witchcraft. Then I tried a spell I cared about, but also didn't care about. Essentially a law keep away spell. Since that night, even when I've gone speeding past a cop who could have easily gotten me, nothing happened. Continued from there, even though I haven't been connected to any of this since my life fell apart like 2 years ago. See, that's what I love. This is me now. Just real magic, real intention. It isn't always about herbs or candles or crystals. Sometimes it's literally intention and transformation and grace.
Exactly. Sometimes the most powerful spell you can cast is forgiving yourself.
Amen to that, sister.
Next up is a story that'll warm your heart. It's from Reddit user ChildrenotheWatchers, and it's about a bunch of kids, a sick old tree, and a little backyard magic that actually worked. It is from the Reddit page Witchcraft. When I was about 5, there was a man across the street who had a plum tree that had not given him fruit in years. It was scraggly looking, and it had a big seeping place on its trunk where bark was missing. He told me and my 2 older siblings that he was going to cut the tree down the next spring if it wasn't well by then. He said he had tried everything he could think of, but it was still looking bad and not producing. My hippie witch aunt from California had come to stay with us a few months before, and she started teaching us kids about witchcraft and spells and psychic powers. My sister, age 9, and brother, 7, said we should do a spell to make his tree well so he would not need to cut it down. So, following the directions of the older 2, we collected a whole bunch of odd stuff that no reasonable person would ever think would heal a tree. Motor oil, dog poop, handfuls of grass, mud, feathers from the bird cage. Just a ton of stuff that we mixed up in a mud puddle in the alley near the tree. And we painted this mess all over the tree's wound. The following spring, the tree made plums, and the patch that was seeping was dried up. The man didn't cut the tree down and was happy that he had plums again. It continued to live up until we moved away 5 years later. I don't know how long it lasted, but we did this spell in 1970.
Okay, now think about everyone who's listening, and Crystal and myself. How many times were you guys in the backyard just mixing a bunch of shit together in a mud puddle?
I don't know how many times I did my own little versions of spells when I was little, using whatever I could find.
Same. It all had a purpose. It was definitely all like, oh, I'm using this dog poop. It's definitely not going to hurt this tree, but it's going to, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, you would be able to rationalize and create to the intention.
Somehow in those little minds, it made sense to them. And they had an intention with it because it made sense to them, and it worked.
I love that. You know what? Again, that just makes me grin. It makes me think of my childhood. And you know what? I think the tree knew it was loved.
Yes, and that's the magic of it. Messy, muddy, and full of heart.
Exactly. Sometimes, like I said, it's not the ingredients that matter. And like we've been saying over and over, it's the intention and a little bit of dog poop.
That's one way to fertilize your faith.
Our last story of the night comes from Reddit user Freckles42. It's a journey from religion to self-discovery and from skepticism to belief.
And it shows that sometimes the universe doesn't need your permission to wake you up.
I was raised evangelical Presbyterian, a hilarious oxymoron, and was one of those Christians in high school. When I went to university, I was seriously considering the ministry. One of my 2 majors was religious studies, and let me tell you, nothing will make you step back from an evangelical path like being exposed to other religions and cultures. Then I came out as bisexual and met my first girlfriend. I just slid towards agnosticism. I only mention the evangelical thing because they are very good at creating divine moments where you feel this surge of connection with everyone around you, and they call it the Holy Spirit moving through you. So I know what religious ecstasy can feel like. In 2008, I was in Scotland for a friend's wedding and went on a driving holiday afterward. I was on a hike on the Isle of Skye, enjoying nature and the stunning views, and suddenly got hit with a wave of religious ecstasy. I was honestly staggered by it. I had never felt religious ecstasy solo. Not like this. I had tears running down my face. I slowly turned, facing north, east, south, and west, and turned before facing north again, when a huge blast of wind nearly knocked me off my feet. I threw my arms out and embraced the north wind. I didn't really know what had happened, but I knew it was something. It took a long time to settle on the right term for my type of belief. No deities, only elementals, and specifically the Calic, the north wind. Since then, I've started to develop my skills. I do a lot of intent work for my friends. After a devastating car wreck in 2019, 30 plus broken bones, destroyed internal organs, 12 surgeries, 5 feet of scars, 1 foot of titanium plating, and a permanent disability, I was visiting with a friend who offered to do some energy healing on me. I normally do not partake in this sort of thing, but I was in so much pain that I said, sure, why not? Can't hurt. Might help. Turns out my friend is an intuitive healer who's trained with a variety of specialists, and I can feel the pain being drawn down through my feet and out through the earth. I cannot emphasize how skeptical I was of energy work, a non-believer honestly, and he was sweating by the end, despite how cool it was, because he was drawing so much off me. He looked at me afterward and said, "How can you live with that much pain?" I was at a 7. I've experienced a 10. I shrugged, but my pain was down to a 3 or 4, which I had not had since before the wreck. I asked how long it would last. He said it could be a day, a week, a month, or a year, but he could repeat it next time he saw me to keep it topped off. Then I asked if he could show me how to do it, since I'd been able to feel my pain going into the ground, but also sense it grabbing onto him on the way out. He was shocked I knew he'd sent it to the ground. Said normally people just feel it go, so he said I might have some skill with intuitive healing. He guided me through what I needed for my pain, which I still use. I could knock my own pain down a point or two so long as I can focus enough. I started doing energy work on others, mostly my spouse, who's skeptical but can't hurt, might help. She's still impressed that I could sense where the damage on her spine was before she got a CT scan, and that I've drawn off her pain, though she says I shouldn't do that unless I'm outside and could touch the earth directly. I got a massage a month ago from a Reiki master. I didn't know that when I booked him, and I asked if he could lower the table so I can touch the floor. He obliged and asked why, and I explained that I needed to release my pain through the earth. He perked up. So that's where it's been going. I could sense the pain was trying to send it away, but it kept sliding away from my hands. Anyway, I'm still skeptical of most energy work, but I'm coming along. For me, magic is just stuff we don't have the science to explain yet, and that's okay. I'm learning to embrace it.
That's beautiful. The way she describes finding peace in the pain, that's real magic.
It's not about spells or potions, crystals, herbs, or whatever. It's that connection to the world, to ourselves, and to each other even.
And I think that's the best kind of witchcraft there is.
So tonight we've seen both sides of the broom, the dark, where the fear and the power walk hand in hand,
and the light, where healing, forgiveness, and intention remind us that magic's not evil. It's just energy. It's what you do with it.
And maybe that's the real life lesson of witchcraft. It reflects the heart that wields it.
Well said, my witchy friend.
And my wino partner.
I'll drink to that. Thank y'all so much for joining us for our Halloween special.
And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share Witchin' and Winin' wherever you listen. And if you've got your own spooky stories, we want to hear them.
You can share on our Reddit page, paranormal_shares, on our Facebook page, Witchin' and Winin', or just send them to our email, witchinandwinin@gmail.com.
That's
WITCHNANDWINEN@gmail.com.
Hey, Lila, What do witches use to send text? What? Bell service. That joke is so bad, even a ghost heard it. Good night. Happy Halloween. Bye. Bye. Bye-bye. Apple Ghost. Bye-bye.